If you keep saying, I'm cooked, maybe this video is for you. Hey guys, welcome back to the Reflection Room. I am really looking forward to our time together today. I absolutely love making these videos. There are times throughout the day where, and it happens pretty often, where I'm like watching something or I see something, I'm scrolling, or somebody says something to me and I'm like, man, that would be really good. A good thing to share, to maybe chat about or get people's perspectives on. So today, for today's topic, I wanted to talk about something that sometimes we tend to minimize or joke around about because of the language that we're using. Which I think is all fine and dandy. I don't think that everything needs to be super serious all the time, very heavy, very gloomy, very dark. I think that it's okay to have fun with some of this stuff. But I also want to make sure that with our Millennial Gen Z lingo, which I love and I use, nothing wrong against it, nothing against it, nothing wrong with it. But just want to make sure that we're also maybe differentiating between having a moment and, I don't know. I know there's one phrase that's like meant to be or something like that, like just kind of having a mental breakdown and making sure that I kind of speak to that, how sometimes we might just be having a moment, but and then there are other people around us or ourselves included sometimes where it's gone from just superficial struggles to, okay, I think this is actually a concern and something I really need to think about and maybe give some attention to. So not too long ago, I was watching a show on Peacock. Peacock is really doing its thing lately. So I'm really impressed. But watching a show and there were two characters in the show and one of them used the phrase, I'm cooked, and actually used it a few times. And they were laughing and joking around about it. And I thought, it's so interesting, the lingo that we use nowadays or the things that we've taken and kind of created our own just to kind of make it fun. And I understand the concept, right? It's I don't want to talk about anything heavy, but I do want to share that I am feeling stressed or, another one I've heard recently is bed rot, right? Like this idea that I'm just rotting in my bed. But yeah, sure. We have those days. We all have those days where we're just kind of sitting there and we don't feel like getting up or not really motivated. But then there are times where we might experience or a loved one might experience something that looks like that, but is definitely serious, right? Where it's hard for them to get out of bed, to get motivated. And then we might be looking at maybe some clinical depressive symptoms, right? So anyways, I thought I'm cooked and they were laughing. I thought it was funny. And it just made me think where did this even come from, this concept? But and then I thought to myself, but what was she really saying there? And how many times have we been around loved ones ourselves where maybe because of the way that they talked about it or didn't talk about it or the nonverbal cues that they gave, we thought that it was not as serious as it really is. And I think that this is a good example of it. Sure, we've all had moments where we just feel exhausted, right? That's essentially what she was talking about. She was saying, for me, I'm cooked. I am either emotionally depleted, I'm mentally exhausted, I feel overloaded with the stress of life, day-to-day life. And I think we all can relate to that, myself included, right? Where there are times where work feels very overwhelming. Maybe we're going through some family stress. There's potentially some transitions that are happening in our lives, and we're trying to wrap our minds around how to move forward with life looking very different than what it once looked like. And so I get it. We all have moments where we are experiencing what we're talking about here, which is burnout, right? That's essentially what we're talking about. Emotional fatigue, mental fatigue, feeling overloaded, extremely stressed, burnt out, aka being cooked. But at what point does it go from, man, it's just a moment, it is a day where it is tough, I am tired and depleted and I just want to lay down and have the day start fresh tomorrow? At what point do we go from that to something that's extremely excessive? So I think a few things to look for. There are a few warning signs, right? Is what are some things that are being sent to the back burner that I'm not giving time to or attention to or prioritizing? And because of that, my personal life is suffering. My relationships are suffering. Maybe it's my performance at work isn't optimal. just because I feel like I'm at capacity. I no longer have any additional margin for me to handle the little things that life kind of throws all of our ways on a daily basis. And so I think that when someone gets to that point where it's like I feel like any other little thing that gets placed on my plate is totally going to cause everything to overflow. I think we're looking at something a little bit different. So I was thinking, what are some things that I would suggest or recommend if it was a friend of mine that came to me and said, I'm cooked, but more so I'm burned out, or if it was a client that was sitting across from me and they were just saying, yeah, I feel like I've kind of reached my max, I'm at my at capacity, and no one seems to understand. No one knows. That's another thing. Sometimes, we don't really verbalize what we're going through in an honest, transparent way. What are some things that I would say? And there's some basic things that came to mind, right? So like one example obviously is like setting boundaries, saying no, that kind of thing. But there were two things that I thought was really I probably would suggest, and I wanted to share them with you guys here. So the first one I would say is what we call keep track of the input. So essentially it's like, what is it that you're taking in on a constant basis without even realizing it? And that could happen through a number of different means. So social media, what are we watching? Are we like really struggling with anxiety and worry, but we're staying up late at night and we're watching, I don't know, like a documentary on some unsolved crimes, right? I say that jokingly, but I think that happens in reality where we don't realize the impact that what we're bringing in is just compiling on top of what is already there that we haven't sorted through. It's kind of like continuing to have a pile of like dirty clothes. And instead of doing the laundry, just continue to go out there, buy clothes and just wear them and just pile them on top of the pile of dirty laundry. It's not helping the problem at all. And if anything, it's contributing to it. So I would definitely say that is like, are we aware of the input? Like what is coming in? What are we hearing? What are we watching? Who are we talking to? What places are we around? Who are we surrounding ourselves with that is impacting the things that we're taking in? And then the second thing, I know it's going to sound very basic, but I think it's the honest truth. And if we really took time, for those of us that maybe feel cooked, took time to really think about, am I actually doing this? Oftentimes the answer is no. And that thing is taking care of practical needs. Are my practical needs being met? By that, I mean, am I sleeping okay? How's my hygiene? Am I eating? Am I moving? Am I staying hydrated? For example, sleep. Oftentimes people don't realize sleep is one of the things that gets taken away from a schedule fairly quickly, but sleep is the thing that's allowing your body to recover in order to function, in order for your brain to function to optimal level the next day, right? So if you think about there being damage occurring throughout the day mentally, but in then at night, it gives your brain the opportunity to restore itself, right? So sleep is very important. And the more that gets removed from our schedule, then it's very difficult for us to handle the things that life throws our way. So that's just one example that I think about when I think about practical needs and the importance of it. So do I think that these millennial or Gen Z phrases are funny and do I use them? Absolutely. I think I love when a generation or a culture embraces something and runs with it. And the fact that we're even utilizing words or phrases that relate to mental health, I think just shows the importance that we place on mental health. In our culture and generations today. But we just want to make sure that we're not overlooking and really kind of like losing sight of what it is that we are feeling personally and what our loved ones are feeling. I think there have been one too many times where unfortunately we have not leaned into and been aware of what our loved ones are feeling and experiencing until it's too late. And so if you're feeling cooked, definitely not a good feeling. Hopefully it's very temporary and fleeting. But if some of the things that I mentioned today are relatable in any way, it might be worth exploring and talking to someone too. And then remember, the two things that I would really suggest with anyone that might be experiencing something like this is, am I being aware of my input and are my practical needs being met? So it was so awesome chatting with you, talking to you about our present day lingo, especially words related to mental health. So thank you so much for tuning in. Would love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. And as always, my recommendation is always the same: keep reflecting.